let me just set up some stuff here. Hey Sarah, hey Eric. Let me just, I have to publish this new class for today so that we can see it in here. How have you guys been doing? Did you guys have a good weekend? Let me see. Perfect. All right, cool. Okay, cool. So let's start. Let's get into it. Let me get back to the student view here. Got all the submissions downloaded. All right, so today we're going to be talking about in a little bit, we're going to be going over the principles of motion design. And we're going to be creating some stuff using weight and squash and stretch, and then also like acceleration and deceleration, kind of what we were doing before, but we're adding on to that, right? So today's lesson is going to be, or this week's lesson is basically going to be all in After Effects, and then next week we're going to do it in Cinema 4D. But I did want to go over a few things before we get into this. The first thing I want to go through is your guys's typography projects. And let me see here. And give you guys some feedback on that. And then next class, that way I don't have to do it next class. Next class will be just talking about just going over the questions. And that way it can kind of evenly split up the lecture and stuff and what we're going to do for this week. I will apologize ahead of time. I'm not 100% today. I'm tired. My stomach hurts a little bit. So my energy level is not quite the same. But we will power through, right? That is what we do. Especially as a student. I know how hard you guys work. So my weekend, Sarah, was, oh God, what did I do this weekend? I don't even remember what I did this weekend. I think, what did I do? It's okay. Probably my normal, I like did normal adulting stuff. So like chores and doing the yard, and then pretty much just work. I work a lot. But yeah. Did you work 2 7-hour shifts back to back? So you worked 14 hours total in one day? If that's the case, that's gross. I don't know where you work, but that sucks. But okay, let's go through these. A lot of the times, as far as like what I see in the typography projects where students kind of have a little bit more, like struggle a little bit more, usually is like they will have either keyframes that overshoot So you'll have some overshoot either in the beginning or the end, or it's just not on screen long enough. And so let's go ahead and view these, and I'll just give you guys feedback. And instead of, it takes up too long to like type it up for you guys, so I'm just gonna refer in your Canvas to watch this video to hear what kind of notes and feedback that I give you. So let's start with Eric. That looks great, Eric. Got the blur on there. All right, so good job overall, Eric. You like pretty much, you're missing one video, right? We're supposed to have one contact information where you creatively like kind of do your own. I think that's the one that I did in this one. Yeah. Let me see. Is it? Oh, maybe not. It looks like what you did. You know what I'm going to do, you guys, is I am going to, this is a great lesson right now for you guys. If you want to break down videos frame by frame, because the native video players inside of a PC or a Mac suck. Like you can't play things frame by frame as you can do in After Effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these inside of After Effects. We're going to watch them there, but let me download my file that I have prepared today, and I'll just put it into there for right now. Let me just drag this onto here. Move this. Yeah, 14 hours in one day would be awful. My partner works 3 12-hour shifts, and that's tough enough. All right, so this is 6, not 96. Thank God we don't have that many projects in class. That would be awful. All right, let me go here. Open this up. So the first thing that I can tell you, Eric, that you're going to want to get rid of on the first, like initially, is the end part of the video has all the extra like black screen or blank frames or whatever. And that's just because your timeline isn't shortened up. So you want to shorten up that timeline. But do that after you throw in the other video, because there should be 5 total, I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, the good, better, best. So the easing, the fading, your contact information, the way I did it, and then the contact information the way you do it, like your creative one, and then also the 3D design. So there should be 5 total. If I wasn't clear enough with that, you guys, and I see that kind of throughout the class, that's my fault. But I'll just have you just add that one on, because it looks like you already did the one that, let me see, that you were supposed to, like your creative one. So does anyone know where I can get like music that I can stream that won't like flag my videos, so that I can play music in the background for you guys? Because I don't know about you, but I really like working to music. And where are these at? Nope, they're in submissions. Import them all. Here they come. Okay, so make a folder. Good job, by the way, you guys, like staying pretty much on top of things. There's like a couple, you know, that aren't done quite yet with things, but in general, you guys have been doing really well at like getting your work done, and Please, feel free to give me feedback if I'm not teaching things thoroughly enough, or if you need more explanation on stuff. I am, it's my second semester teaching here, and so I want to be able to help like future classes, and help myself to be better at this. So I am all for feedback. But let's continue going. All right. That looks great. Your good, better, best, Eric, is on screen long enough. It looks awesome. That fade kind of moves a little fast, like as far as like spreading apart. Your keyframes are a little quick there, so maybe I would just slow that down just a tad. That looks good. Good job on the 3D scene. Okay, here's where I wanted to break it down. First of all, let me do that. So if you guys want to scrub through the video like this, like going frame by frame, you need to hit Control. You need to hold Control and then the arrow keys. And that will let you scrub frame by frame through either video, or it also allows you to go frame by frame at a time with on the timeline, like down at the bottom here. So if you're like wanting to specifically see like maybe where the issue is, you can do it that way. But that's a great way to bring videos. Like if you can download videos online and then bring them into an After Effects project and go through frame by frame, you can see kind of how they do things. So you can break down videos that way. That's something that I still do sometimes, just to see like maybe what kind of techniques people are using, or just to maybe, break down my videos a little bit more. After I've rendered them, where I'm like, this is just something's wrong, I want to update it, and so I'll go through frame by frame. But this, in general, looks pretty good. Nice job on there, Eric. Like the bevel on the letters are good. Your kerning's good, like the spacing and stuff. The only thing I would maybe say about this is your camera movement is slightly, like it's it travels kind of a long distance with the rotation and position, and so it just kind of gives an appearance that it's not quite centered. And so maybe I would just, like, especially right there, like you'd kind of want it centered a little bit. And this is me picking things, just to help you guys grow. And so maybe I would just try and center your camera movement a little bit more there. But I mean, that's if you just want to make it look a little bit more refined. I'm not going to dock you for it. It looks good other than that. All right, so I see you have like a black solid going down and revealing this. And the type looks good there. And then this solid comes down in your name there. That's pretty good. Right here, I would maybe add some more space in between this area, so there's a little bit of buffer room. It's a little too close at the moment, and it gives that kind of like uncanny valley feeling to it. So I would just add a little bit of extra space there, and then you can even bring this up. You can move this text up a little bit to fit there. But actually, no, you know what? Because I did mention you want to have some similar spacing there and there, so you did very good on that. I would just bring this one up a little bit. Yeah, but in general, good job on the entire thing. So yeah, way to go. Good first start there. Let us move on to Asia. Let me see. Cool. Good job, Asia. That's good. You got some good stuff in there. Let me start. I particularly like, is this one? I'm not quite sure which typeface this is, but it's slightly like a little bit. You know what? I like it. I don't mind it. I will allow it. So I just don't know if that one's specifically in our font pack. But let's go back here. Okay, so the first thing I notice here is that this is not all aligned here. You want all of these to be on the same line lining up, right? And I would darken the text on here. It's too close, like the contrast is too close to the white, and it doesn't give enough of that contrast that I'm looking for. And so darken that text, make sure everything's all aligned, right? And get rid of the italics. I noticed that in a couple of yours too, and so let's stay away from the italics. No italics. Just in general, it's only used for very specific things, and so I would just avoid it. But other than that, the motion of this one looks pretty good. It's on screen a hair too long. Let me see here. So your total animation is about 7 seconds long. I would shave off 2 seconds and only make it 5 max. 5 max. You can even make it with just 4 seconds because there's only 3 words on screen. So by the time it comes in, you have it coming in by 2 seconds. You could even have it, let me first of all move my down here. Anyway, so yeah, I would just cut this down to anywhere between 4 and 5 seconds, and just, you know, tighten up those keyframes a little bit so it's not as slow. And I would think the same thing as well for the fade, right? The fade has just kind of the similar aspects about it that I would want you to update. So get rid of the italics, darken the type, and then just speed up the animation a little bit and just cut it down to about 4 seconds. And then you should be good on that. I also would like to see this, the F right here, just, you know, once you get rid of that italics, I'd like it to be over just slightly more. And I want to be able to read this E. So you might just have to kind of move this stuff in in this way, and then maybe even using a bolder font or typeface would work really well. I know that I used Roboto, but another good one to use is hold on, just any nice thick, like, I mean, people use Impact. This one right here is called Poppins. I think this text, this typeface, and I do believe this is a Google one. Yeah, this one's called Poppins up there. So this is a good one to use. Just a nice thick heavy, so if whatever font you're using has a heavy version of that, you can try using that for this section right here, so that you can move that F off screen a little bit, and just kind of move the AD and E further this way, and make sure your spacing is the same between them. But good job on it. Other than that, like, the motion's really nice and smooth, right? Like, fades on nice. You've got really good easing on that. Everything kind of ends the same on there, so your keyframes are lined up. So good start on this. That's great. Great spacing there. Good timing on this. Good alignment there. I do think that, what is this? This looks like it is italics. So I would just, you know, remove the italics off of that one. And this looks pretty good too. You could almost pull the camera out because there's not enough room on the side here, right here, this way, and then right here too. You want to give yourself some, I know they talk about, let me see here. There, that's what I meant. Right there and there. So in art, and you guys, if you've taken like a drawing class or a design class, you'll kind of learn about looking at the negative space, right? Like all of the space around whatever your subject is. And you want to have like a nice buffer in between there and the frame right here, right? Because the edge of it's a little too close to the edge of that frame. And then I would just extend this out maybe an extra second or so. But yeah, it looks kind of cool. And then maybe what I would also do is take this bevel and just tone it down just slightly. So it's not so, because right here you're getting it, it's a little crimped right there. And it's kind of more difficult to use with a serif font. But yeah, just tone that down a little bit. Maybe you can either scale the type down, like the whole word, both your names, you can scale them down, or you can pull the camera out a little bit more. It'd probably be just easier to scale it down, and then just make sure that's centered and extend the video a little bit. Okay, cool on there. Good idea doing like a typewriter style. Let me zoom in here. A typewriter style animation. I would speed that up so it just kind of types on screen a little bit faster because it's just a little too slow. And then maybe offset it. Speed it up and just maybe offset those slightly, both words, so they don't start to animate on at the same time. And then animator and graphic designer, and don't use a plus. If you're going to use anything, use an ampersand, which is this. No, you're not going to work. Oh, get out of town. The ampersand, it won't let me like hold shift and type anything above, but the ampersand looks like this. Oh, am I going to do it? Kind of. I did it. I'm accepting it. I think it's great. So just use an ampersand instead of that. I would also possibly like full caps for your name. And then possibly even full caps on this. I'd like to see it like that. At least, or all caps on just animator and graphic designer instead of with your name, because that way the hierarchy might be a little bit different. But other than that, like, cool idea, right? Let me see the motion of it. Let's see the animation. Yeah, just speed it up and you should be good on there. So good job. Overall, good job. All right. And now we have Brian. Great job on that, Brian. The motion's nice and smooth. That one I would speed up a little bit. I think, you know what? I think I did 7 seconds in my own video, so that's okay. The fade looks good. Give a little bit of room right in here, in between the F and your sentences. Just a little bit of breathing room. So just take this stuff and move it over this way a little bit. And then I would even shuffle. Oh, I would even shuffle like all of this over this way a little bit more as well, because it looks like the E, like the edges of the E are just touching that. So just slightly shift it over a little bit. But your spacing's good. The motion of it's great. Yeah, good job on that. Good job on that, Brian. Again, like I was telling Eric, I would just add a little bit of room right there. Other than that, this looks all good. The motion looks great on this. All right, and then the only other one we need to see is the contact information that is of your own design. This looks not bad. I would just like add some color to the floor there, to the backdrop. Just throw like a plastic material on there, and you can just not a shiny plastic, but more of like a rough looking plastic, and then just maybe tone the color down a little bit, and that'll just give it visually a little bit more to look at. And then I would also maybe just expand your lights a little bit so you cover up all this dark area, because we don't want too much of that dark area in our videos. But yeah, but good job on everything. Good start on that. All right. Let's go here to Zoe. All right, just the first thing that I'm noticing. Good motion on it, but there's a little bit too much room in between here. So I would tighten these little spaces up. One of the things, if you try to align the type with the alignment tool over here, right? Like if you're trying to align the objects together, they align based on the anchor points. So if you select all your layers and click, you know, like distribute them the same, it distributes them based on where the anchor point is. So if your anchor point is at the bottom part of your words right here, it'll actually look off. The distribution is correct, but the like the visual distribution is incorrect. The spatial, like actually between those anchor points, numerically is the same, but because each of these words are different size fonts, that is what is causing it to kind of look like that. So I would just check that and make sure that you just kind of more visually adjust the spacing. Sometimes you got to do that, and it's kind of a pain, but I like to use rulers, and I'll show you guys kind of about those today in class. But the motion looks really nice. I actually haven't seen from you guys. I see you guys are doing awesome on adding the blur, doing the easing. Like easing is not always that easy to do. It can be kind of like counterintuitive to like the way the graph looks to the motion, and so you guys are doing a really good job. Let me see here. That looks great. Timing's awesome on that. Let me see if that was just a glitch in the. Let's go one. Okay, so this looks like some weird kind of render error. I'm not thinking that you did something weird. It has to be with maybe some kind of issue or bug that was encoded into the video. So I would just re-encode this, see if it does it again, or just double check that it's not something that is actually inside of your composition. It happens sometimes with media encoder and just in general working, and just in digital media in general when you're rendering things out. Okay, that looks cool. If you have more information, let's add it, right? Because we don't just want an email here. So one of the things that I did when I was in school is I did not want to give out my personal like Instagram account name and stuff. And so what I did is I made a separate art account, like I have separate social accounts for just my artwork. And that way you can give that to people and not have to worry about them like tracking you down or doing weird things. Because I understand, you know, you don't want everyone going to like your personal Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. But if you have a Behance, you could put Behance on there. You could put your Vimeo information, a website if you have it, your email. You can do a phone number if you want to, but like that by all, you do not have to. That's not a requirement. and then Instagram's always one, you know, or ArtStation. If you have an ArtStation, you can put that on there too. So I would just maybe try and think of a little bit more to fill this in here, right? But other than that, the motion looks good. The timing is a little slow, so I would just speed that part. I would just speed up your name coming down from the top. The your email and the like matted solid, those come up at a great timing. Like the speed's good. They're up on screen long enough, but you kind of want to stack things when you're sequencing animations. You want to stack them like evenly. You don't want too much time on screen where there's nothing happening, because then people are just going to assume you kind of stopped doing that. There are going to be some times where there's going to be a lot of text on screen and you can't have a ton going on because you want people to read it. But this is not one of those instances. So I would just tighten up the timing of your name coming down. And then all you have to do as well is just add in, it looks like we need the 3D. So you need to add the 3D one, and then you also need to add your personal animation here of your contact information, like your own creation of it. But good job, good start at that. Griffins, perfect. Let me see here. Yeah, looking good. That was a nice speed out. Let me see that again. Yeah, that one went. That definitely got like an energy drink right at the end. He is gone. They are just. Yeah, that just, I don't know why that tickled me. It made me laugh. But that looks great. You know, having it even centered in the middle of the composition looks really nice. Some of you tend to put it down here at the bottom. Some people put it the middle right there. Either way is okay. That looks good. Spacing's good on this. You could even increase the size of the type so it fills up a little bit more space, because we have a lot of negative space kind of going on up here. So I would just maybe increase the font size on this. And you can, so if you are going to do that though, let me show you what you're going to want to do, because you already have animations on the words, right? And as soon as you start to increase the font size, it's going to kind of undo where the anchor point doesn't stay in the center when you're increasing the size of a font with like words and stuff like that. It's kind of an annoying thing that happens, but then you have to recenter your anchor point. But then all of a sudden it throws off all your animations, right? Because this is a position. You have position changes, and as soon as and it's animating from that position of the anchor point, right? So as soon as you move that anchor point, your values are going to change, and we don't want to undo all of that hard work that you did. And so what you will do is you will have different layers. Let me show you guys this quick tip for you. And we're going to be working with a null. Kind of like, I'm just going to quickly make this comp. That was the wrong, let me see here. First of all, let me put example. Let me open this up. And the first thing I noticed when I was making it is that the frame rate is off. So let me put it to 24 frames a second. And the 5 is okay. So let me show you what I am talking about. I will, right here, let me change the size. And hopefully we can read it. Let's make that text dark. Okay, there we go. So we have our word here, and I'm going to take the anchor point and I am going to center it. We're just going to center it for time's sake right now. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to control and double click the anchor point tool, and it centers it automatically. Then I'm going to hit V to go back to my selection tool. And I am going to animate the position. Let me just do this real quick. Okay. So it's going to animate off screen. Don't worry about the linear keyframes. We're not looking at that right now. All right, so it's animating off screen. Now let's say your client comes back and they're like, well, I want that bigger. Okay, well, let's go ahead and increase the size of it. Like triple or double what it was, right? And so all of a sudden the anchor point's here, it's not in the middle. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever, let's go ahead and control double click here. But then all of a sudden you see that your animation line went from a straight line, like it went, not that one. It went from a straight line, right, to all of a sudden kind of like a curved line. It changed the position values. And so what you want to do is instead of doing it that way, we are going to take, let me see. We are going to undo the scaling, right? So we're back at the original size. They're still telling us they want it bigger. We're going to right click down here in the space at the bottom, and we're going to go to new, and we're going to hit null object. And so what this null object is, remember, it's just kind of a blank layer that sits inside of After Effects that's waiting for you to assign something to it. And essentially it's like works as like a controller for objects. And so what I will do then is this is something called parenting. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but you can either take this little tool right here, which is this thing right there, the little spiral. Those are called pick whips. I'm just kind of teaching you guys something a little early on, but I would write this in your note. That's a pick whip. And what you do with the pick whip is you can drag it to, you can click and drag that to other values of things and link them together. So it's called parenting. Notice that it says parenting link right here. Parenting and linking. The other thing that you can do is you can go and you can click on this little box where it says none, where that little arrow is, and that's a drop down menu and what you'll see in there when you open that is all the different layers that you have in that composition, and you will select the object that you want to link that specific layer to. So let's say for some reason I wanted to link a ball to the text and I'm selected on the ball layer, then I would just open that little drop down menu and select the text. And that way, when I move the text, the ball would move with it, right? Because they're linked at that point. We'll go into this a little bit more, but you can either take this pick whip and you can drag it to the null. Or what you can do is you can grab that drop down and you can just click on the null. And then what we will do is we will select the null specifically, and then you're going to hit scale. And it's just going to scale. This is counterintuitive to what I told you guys before. Hold on. Here's a funny thing that happens. There we go. Okay. We've got the text. It was never centered in the first place. That's why it threw my brain off. But you'll scale it. And then as soon as I click here, you notice that it hasn't changed your animation path. So the animation path is still the same. And then you don't just have to scale it. You can change. The only thing you can't control on this is opacity. Like if I hit T, there is no opacity to this layer, so it's not going to even matter, right? But any kind of transform property in here, like the scale, position, rotation, they will change with this null, because the null is essentially the controller, right? So if I wanted to rotate like this, but then watch, as soon as I click the hello, the line is still straight. The animation is still there. And so it's just kind of a quick, easy hack to not lose all of that work and being able to kind of scale things, move things around, rotate them as needed when there's kind of changes that come up. And so that was just a quick tip for you guys there for when you go to fix the size of this. Let me know if you guys have questions in the chat right now. Good looking on that. I'm not sure if this should have the @ sign before it right here, because I don't know if it's like a tag, like an Instagram tag or anything like that. And then I would possibly, everything looks good. It's so crazy because your background is like this same exact color as my, because I work in dark mode on all of my programs and stuff. And so it's like the same color. That's really funny. Other than that, really good job. We're missing the 3D type, so I need that in here. And then I need your personalized contact information as well. All right, Sarah's work. That's who we're at right now, right? No, I skipped over Griffin. We saw Zoe's. Nope, we saw Lee's. Good job, Lee. All right, yeah, cool. Sarah, let's go here. Yeah, looking good, all lined up. I love the weight here. You can obviously, you're going to read best, better, and good right away. The movement looks really nice. I don't know then if this is like an issue with mine. Sarah, is this in your render? Let me know in the chat, because then I'll kind of have an idea if it's my computer or if it's like something going on with the render settings, because it was in Zoe's as well. So, and I think, Lee, I think I keep saying Griffin. I keep saying your last name, and I'm so sorry. I'm gonna really try and stop saying that. I don't know why I do. It's like the first thing I read there, and so, and Griffin is also a first name, so I inherently just say that, and I apologize. I will try and stop doing that. That's okay. I mean, we all have a lot we need to fix in our stuff all the time. Like there's gonna be, it wasn't in my render. Yeah, check for me. And then if it's not, then it's my computer. It's something happening there. Your fade looks really nice. Everything's all lined up. I would maybe speed it up slightly. And then I would even take this type right here, and you could increase the size of it if you want to, using the null technique I was just talking about. Yeah, just tighten up the keyframes on that to speed it up. Cool, good job on that. Yeah, and then we just need the great start. The only change I would do is to this, just speed this one up like I said. And then you still need your 3D type and then the creative version of your contact information. I would give a little bit of extra room because of the the @ symbol right here. I would just add a little bit of spacing in between here, because this hangs low and it is the first letter of your like tag, and so, or first symbol or character, and so it gives a little bit of a visual tightness in between here. So I would just slightly bump that one up a little bit, and then maybe is this looks like, no, it's double the size of this, so it looks good. Yeah, good job. All right. All right, we have Kaylee here. That's, yeah, good job on this so far, Kaylee. The only thing I see here is overshoot, right? So that means that your curve, instead of going like this, right, and meeting up to one keyframe here, and this is just an example. Actually, it would, I think your curves look more like this, right? You've got the keyframe right here. Let me do, you got the little keyframe right here. You've got a keyframe right here. And then the line goes like this. right? To meet up with the, let me do this again. It is actually the other way. I'm trying to think of it because moving in, that is what it looks like on the way out. But like what your graph looks like on the way in should be something similar to this. The overshoot occurs when this line right here, your graph line right here, goes like this. It goes up, good, good, good. It shoots above the keyframe here and goes back down. This area right here, that is overshoot. You don't want that. You want it to be even. You want your curve, like the arc of the curve, to be even with that keyframe, because as soon as that happens is when you get that like it'll go beyond where the keyframe position lands. See how it goes beyond and then it goes back to settle into place. You don't want that in this instance, right? We use overshoot in some ways, but in this instance, we do not want that. So I would fix that. But other than that, the motion looks pretty good. Like everything's eased really well. Good job on like the font weights and stuff. That looks good. I would move the E over slightly here. Just take all of these and move them over slightly this way. And then I would also take, there's the space between these are uneven, like right here and here. The negative space is not the same. This is almost double what this is. So I would just make sure the spacing on those are even, you know, and then, but yeah, the timing on it's really nice. Everything else looks pretty good. Yeah, this is my computer, you guys. It's definitely not. Also, it wasn't in my render. Cool, yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that's not your guys' fault. So I believe I mentioned that to Zoe. I would just not worry about that. It's just my computer for some reason. It might be something with my graphics card that I'll have to update. So if you guys see that happening in my videos today, don't worry about it. We'll try and figure out what that is. And so then we're also just missing the Cinema 4D one. And then we're also missing the kind of do your own, like create your own. That looks cool. Just maybe, like I said earlier, add the information. But that looks good. Especially the spacing between here when you have such a high contrast with black and white. It's like dead. Your spacing is almost dead on. Slightly off. I can see. But that's just me being picky and kind of a jerk, so you guys can hate me for that. It's just I can't not see it because I just look at that stuff all the time. But good start on this, you guys. You guys are doing really good. And like I said, like I mentioned earlier, these changes, I will still give you guys your grades right now in these projects. And the changes that I'm requesting for you, I am requesting to be made later on in the semester when we're going to, in a couple weeks, we're going to do a revision round. And that's when I really want you guys to make all of these changes on this. We're going to have a couple revision rounds throughout the semester. But so if you don't do it right away, that's okay. But I do want to see the changes done. So there is a very subtle overshoot on this. Rimini. Good job on it though, but super, super subtle. So I would just really zoom into that that graph and just make sure there's no overshoot of your curve. But the motion looks good. Add some motion blur to this. So this starts the fade is all of that is cut off. So I want to see this fade on first, right? The word fade should fade at first, then it splits, and then this is when the sentences come on. Right now, everything's happening all at once, so you want to sequence your animations so that the fade happens first, the fading on of the word happens first, then it separates, and then the typing comes on, right? And then it looks like it's just cut off here. So it might just, it looks like it has to do with the composition. And then tighten up the space right here. That's maybe where it is. So it looks like your layer is not, like if this were your layer, it's just slightly cut off a little bit there. So like if you wanted it to be there, this part here is missing. So you'll just want to make sure that all of the pre-comp is like in your main comp and showing. And then fade that off. I want to see it fade off as well. It's slightly too long. I would sequence those animations and then just only have it up there for like 5-6 seconds. Yeah, this looks good so far. The only thing that happens here is your type overlaps, and that's not a good, we don't want to see that in animation at all. You never want to see words go over top of other words, because then it just is visually a little confusing and stuff. So sequence these animations as well. That's kind of what I'm noticing. Like the movement looks good. We're missing some motion blur on yours, so I would add the motion blur to these. Let me see here. Oh, that flashing is driving me nuts. Yeah, add the motion blur to these. Speed them up a little bit. These, I would sequence these animations out, right, so that you want, here, let me see here. You want this to move first, then this to come down, and then your name to come down. So like 1, 2, 3. But make sure, like I said, they don't overlap at the top. So you'll just sequence out those position keyframes. You'll just move them over in your timeline. And then I also want to see this. This needs to be bigger. Remember, the rule is 2 times, right? Whatever the regular font weight is. So if this were 50, this has to be 100. So make sure that is the rule that you're using. And then bring this down closer to here, right? I want to see this. There's a little bit of space in between here, about the same that you see right here from the top of this line to your name. Give me a little space there. So, and then add that motion blur. And then we're also missing the 3D animation, the 3D type, and then the creative contact information as well. Good start on these, you guys, though. Oh no, that one goes into place pretty well. Good job on that one. And this is Lee, by the way. Lee, the second Lee in the class. Let me see here. That looks good. Get off screen. Yeah, looks nice there. And that's what I was meaning. Ramini, that's what I was talking about as far as sequencing them, right? Because in Lee's we see it coming on like 1, 2, 3, boom. That's kind of what I want to see in yours as well. Good spacing in between those. The fade's cool. I would brighten this up a little bit, Lee. Yeah, good job. The only thing on here is that the fading of the entire composition starts happening before all of this animation can continue finishing, right? None of this finishes. We want that to finish, so you can speed up those animations a little bit. Let me see the timing of it for this one. That's good timing. The timing is actually good. Just extend the composition, your main composition, right? You can extend that one and then just drop that pre-comp in there. In the time of the pre-comp you should make sure that the full pre-comp is in there, the length of that layer. Yeah, but looks good there. And then the only one we're also missing the Cinema 4D and the creative one of yours. And then I would also, real quick, I just noticed this, just add a little extra space in between these two. Yeah, but your Behance there, that's great. You can remove the HTTPS. I don't think that people really type that in anymore. They'll just know to go to behance.net and then your name there. So, all right, and we have Nolan. All right, Nolan. So it looks like there's some kind of issue going on with the easing there. So your curves must look remember from this one we wanted to start fast and then ease into the position, right? So we want it to we want the curve to look like this at the beginning, and then at the end we want the curve to look like this, right? And then all this flat space in between is going to be where the text just stays on screen and nothing happens. So speeding up, remember, because this is the way the graph looks, right? This is the positional change, and this right here is your time change. So as the higher, the more like steep the curve going up is going to be faster over time, right? Because you're changing position a lot quicker within like only a few keyframes here, and you're all of a sudden going the position is changing really high, and then it starts to slow down, right? Like over this time the position then right here it doesn't really change as much, and so and vice versa right here, right? So you have it kind of slowly going and then speeding up all of a sudden. So check those keyframes at the beginning, because the end part looks pretty good, but this part there's some issues going on there. And then remember, the more dramatic the angle of those curves, the faster it's going to go, or the like more space over time it's going to move. Fading looks good. All this looks good. Maybe add just slightly adjust the space in between the A and the D. But this looks great. Let me see again. So these are the same. You have on here the same effect. One should be fade on per, let me see. Where's that one? Animation presets. Make sure I am not covering this. I just want to make sure that my face isn't blocking this area, because it tends to do that. I'll move myself right up here, right? Or over here. That works out. So we go to animation presets, then we're going to go to text. And then where's the fade? Animate in and fade here. Fade up characters is by letter, and then fade up words is by words. So make sure you add this one, because right now both of them are the fade up characters. So you want to just adjust that. And then I believe, did you have motion blur on this one? I don't think so. Yes, you do. You have motion blur on it. Yeah, there is definitely blur on that. Good job there. Nice, nice. Good job. Yeah, the last one looks good. Yep, so just the Cinema 4D and the creative contact information. Good start on that. All right, and the Maisie. I want to see that move into, I want to see more dramatic curves there, Maisie. That's great. The end one's really good, but I would just maybe make those because they come in at the same time almost. Like the easing is very similar there. Um, Not that it's terrible, right? You still eased it, but remember we want this to be the more dramatic easing for the word best. Better is going to be like slightly more dramatic easing, and then good is going to be like an average ease, right? So we want to see, I just want to see that at the beginning and the end. You add, I believe you have blur on here, right? There's no blur, so add the motion blur. And then, yeah, I believe that. Yeah, your easing at the end part is really good. That looks really nice. I like the typeface that you used. I would just tighten up the space slightly in between the F and the letters. Like just bring it over almost to where this arrow is. And then you could even make yours a little bit bigger if you want to kind of clear out some of this empty space right here, some of this negative space. So you could just either move this up or just scale it slightly using the null technique I was talking about. And let's see that fading off. It looks like either your pre-comps are overlapping inside of your main composition. And so the one is cutting the other one off. So make sure that doesn't happen because I want to see the beginning of this animation. Because it just kind of, it does what we call as like a jump cut, right? It's just like one to the other. There is no transition. And it's already in the middle of the animation. So I know that the beginning of the animation has to be here. I'm just not seeing it because it's getting cut off. Everything looks really good. Good job on the fade there. Oh, this is like your creative one. That's neat. And then it wipes the information away. Really cool job on that. Yeah, I like that a lot. I would not actually, don't take your name off screen. So the reason, like I said in the last class, I'm trying to think of what I want because the last class when we talked about this, the reason that we're making this contact information is because it's going to go at the end of your reel. And in fact, I just took a lesson from my own. I took a lesson from my own lesson that I gave you guys, and I did the same with my recent reel I did. And you'll see at the end here. At the end here, I do the same, but it stays on screen the entire duration of the video because I want people to see that my information so that they can contact me even when the video stops. So you don't want to animate that information off, right? I have a title card here. I'll teach you guys how to do this stuff later. That's fine. Yours will look a little bit different, but at the end here, you want that information to stay on. So I would almost reverse that information if that is the contact info that you want to use at the end of your reel, okay? Other than that, like it's cool. I like it. I think it's really smart. But that is the only foreseeable conflict that I can see kind of happening here, unless the information stays on long enough. And then if that's the case and you still want to animate it off, right, just speed up this section right here where your name goes off. Just tighten up the animation right there for where your name goes off. Make that go off nice and like faster, and then this a lot quicker as well. But really, yeah, I like the creative one. I like to see what you guys are thinking. And then I would also just add a little bit of that buffer space right there in between your name and the line. But I really enjoy this typeface. I really like the sharp angles right here. I don't know why. I'm very big on really angled text. I like it. Looks cool. And then I also see that looks really good. I would increase, okay, there's just a couple little things here. Make that light wider, right? So that we get take all of this fall off is kind of what we call it, like the light fall off, and we brighten that part up because you don't want to see too much of that. The other thing here is that the corners, right? Like I was saying earlier, you want to give a little bit of breathing room on the edges of the actual animation or the actual framing of the type. And then you have to have some camera movement in here. So just add some camera movement. The other thing I see here, and this is what you guys you're gonna kind of run into often. This right here, these artifacts in 3D, like on 3D geometry is when you like push a limit too far with something. So I'm not seeing, it has to do with the actual font. Even though I told you I really like this font, it might not work very well for 3D, for being a 3D object, right? Because what's happening is like there's, you guys know that there's like a wireframe, right, to the geometry. And what's happening here is that wireframe is crossing. And so the computer doesn't know. It's like, do I show the outside, the inside? It's crossing, so it's technically twisted around. And so that's kind of what's happening there. It's showing like the inside of the geometry and the outside of the geometry, and we don't want that. So what I would do is either increase the font size. That might help. I would either or change the font size. And then make sure you add like that beveled edge on there, just a slight beveled edge. I don't think it'll work with, I don't know if it'll work with this typeface. Try it out and let me know, right? And then add that camera movement in there, and then the fall off of the light, increase that, widen it, or duplicate the light so that we have another one. Just kind of filling that area in, right? But in general, really good job. We're just missing the standard contact information one that I did, which is very close to this, right? You're almost there. I like it though. Great job here, you guys. And we have a Maya. All right. Just the overshoot that I'm seeing there, Maya. So then I would make sure that that curve is like this, and it meets up well with the keyframes and doesn't overshoot. Remember, don't let it go up and then down. And then let's get rid of the italics on here. And I'm not sure what typeface this is. Just let me know. And I want to see if that's in the, yeah, the overshoot must be a little bit heavy here, because what you can see is it goes here and then it goes back, and it takes a while to go back. So the overshoot will look really long. It'll look like it goes real long before it gets to that keyframe. And then we have to add some motion blur to this, and adjust the curves in general on this one. And then the other thing that happens is this shows up on screen before this is done animating off screen, and you just don't want that to happen right now. There are scenes where you can change the movement to introduce a new scene, and we'll kind of get to that in like a couple weeks, right? So, but for now, I want you to make sure that these compositions don't overlap, and this has to fade on screen. It's and then you're going to have to separate, get rid of the italics, number one, and then make this bigger, right? You want this size of this word faded. Here, let me go through this one at a time so it's a little easier. So it should be fade, not faded, and then the no italic, no italics, and then you want to make sure that the height of the word fade here equals the same height as the word here, right? You want it to be all the same size. So the top of the F should be lined up here with the top line of your sentence, and the bottom of the F should be lined up with the bottom part of the sentence. And then the same with the AD and E. You want it at the same height as this line and the same height as the bottom, like at the bottom of the letter. And then these have to fade on, right? Fade this on first. then these separate, and then this types on. So you got a little work on this one. You got some work to do on that. And then you want to fade it off screen, right? Because we're seeing a lot of overlap of your compositions. So there's no, the one thing that you're seeing here is it looks black, but that's because there's no background and it defaults to black, right? So what you'll want to do is you want to right click, hit new, and then create a solid. You can do this in your main layer. I'll show you this today. And then that way you don't have to put a background on each one of your scenes. The background can be in the main scene, but at least there's something there, right? So you're going to want to make sure that they're end to end, that your compositions are end to end. They're not overlapping like this, right? And that you have a background in the main comp. Again, like the italics, I just won't. This is a little slow. So let's speed that up there. And the animation like cuts off before it actually stops animating on. So we need to do some work on these too. If you need help on this, I would like talk with Belle and she can help walk through with this, or you can email me and we can talk a little bit more about it. But we want to remove the stroke around the box, and then the solid of this the solid layer here is moved over, right? It needs to move this way so that we're not seeing the edge of it. You can keep the stroke. I'll even let you keep the stroke as long as you move this solid layer over so that I don't see the edge of it right here. And then these need to be separate. These need to be all separate layers. You don't want them all on the same, because everything's moving at the same time. And we don't want that. We want it to be sequenced, right? So it looks like this right here, your name and your information are separate layers, but there needs to be 4 separate layers here of just type. Don't worry about writing Instagram here. People are going to kind of know if they're going to type it in. You don't have to put in here, this was your old hacked account. That's okay. You can just take those out right there and then take out email right there. And then just with the italics. And then we want the timing a little bit worked out here with the easing and adding some motion blur. So there's some work you've got on this one, Amaya. But like I said, if you need help or anything, there's some great, students, you guys have some good work in here and good start. So, don't worry, don't feel like you can't ask the other students, because they're going to be able to help you too. I've seen you guys asking in the Slack, and I'm happy you guys are doing that. And then there's just a lot of you guys. I'm sorry. We have Janelle here. Let's see. Oh, and then we needed Amaya, we still need the 3D type, and then we need this one done in your own style. And so, all right, Janelle, let's move back here. Nice. Good job on that, Janelle. Moves off screen great. The fade looks good. Nice. Good job. Looks awesome. Okay, so this is this looks good. The it looks like you were maybe, this happens too, zoomed in on your comp, right? Like you could have been looking at it like this. And it looks like it's full screen, but it's not, because you're not actually looking at the entire comp. And so the way I'm like quickly zooming in and out like that is I am using shortcuts on the keyboard. Control plus, what is it? It's plus or minus. right? Not an underscore, but a minus. If you hit control and plus or minus, it'll zoom in quickly on your composition. That's one to add to your like glossary or notes. And so I can quickly zoom in and out looking. So it looks like you're just slightly zoomed in here when putting it into your composition. So I would just check that, or make sure that your render settings are correct inside of Cinema 4D. And the only things I would have to say about this, right, is I would add another light so this fall off, you don't see a bunch of this fall off. And then there's too much room. There's too much room on this side versus this side. So I would either move the text or change the camera angle and just animate that a little bit differently. And you can extend this animation to up to 5 seconds too, so we can see it on their phone. Because it does, well, it animates over to be centered, right? So that's nice. I would just maybe just do rotation then. But it looks good. The beveled edge on here looks nice. It's subtle. This is cool. That was cool. I would tighten up just the space in between here, right? So tighten them up, and then you can even make these bars come down a little bit further then, right? I know why you centered this, and I will allow it, I think. I don't think it's that big of an issue because of the way it animates on screen. A little thing I'm seeing here over in the corner is just these, this solid needs to be pushed over more this way. Same up at the top, I noticed it too. So I don't know if you have, it can't be a masked solid because they both animate from the, one animates from the top down and the other goes from the bottom up. So it must just be, you must just have two solid layers changing position, right? One's animating down, one's animating up. Just move those over because you probably duplicated it is what I'm going to assume. That's what I would have done. So, yeah, just make sure that's like that. Tighten that space up. You can even increase the size of your name and speed it up slightly. You know, let's see it be snappy, right? We want a little bit of snap to it. Good job, though. Overall, really good job. Great start. Not a lot of work on those. All right, Yvette, let's go here. That looks great, Yvette. Good job on that. Saw the motion blur on that. That was good. Looks nice. Let me see here. This kind of shows up on screen right away, so fade this on. You want to make sure that fade happens like it's at 0% and it goes to 100%. And it's not just kind of showing up on screen right away. Looks good though. Good spacing on everything. You could just darken the type a little bit. I like that it's like kind of a warm gray. I enjoy that. And then there's just slightly, you could use just slightly a little bit more space right in between here to just kind of match this, right? So you can use the null technique or just move the last keyframes, like just change the position value of the last keyframes of that A and that D. Good job fading off. Looks nice. Good job on the sequencing of that. I think this is, just make sure this is 2 times the size of the other typeface. It could be. It's just maybe my eyes are looking at different. And then also, this just seems to be, sometimes this can happen where the layer gets nudged, right? So what I would do with that, Yvette, is I would create the null and just slightly either scale it or move it over that way so that it, when I point this way, it might not be the same way on your screen, but like what I'm saying is move over this way a little bit so we don't see that little gap there. But it looks really good so far. And then I think we just need your Cinema 4D. We need that one. And then I know I only went over these 3 in class, right? But then just make sure you guys are reading about those deliverables on the bottom of the sheet, because there are videos that are linked in the modules that show the other techniques. Sometimes we just run out of time based on how big the class is and how much stuff I have to go through. But just make sure that you're reading those deliverables, checking the modules, watching any videos that I let you know to watch. That was good. Nice and quick and snappy there at the end. I like it. Yeah, that looks nice. Way to go, Juliana. This happens really quick. You can fade this type on. I thought I did that. Sarah, if you're still in the live chat, did I do that? I don't know. I would just move this one, move this over a little bit there. You can even add more space in between these so that there's not so much negative space happening like right in this area. But it's good all together. It looks really nice. Oh, that's cool. Changing colors. I see you're working with some blend mode stuff there. Interesting. That's cool. Give a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room in between that. And then make sure there's like about equal distance in between the top and the bottom there. Cool. So your word is not on the, it's moved up. So make sure that it's touching the backdrop, right? You want to bring that type down a little bit. And then the other thing is the fall off of the light. I would just brighten that light up a little bit. And then I think you're just missing the one like that I did for the contact information. But that, other than that, good job. Really nice job. All right, guys, we're getting there. This is bear. Ooh, blue type here. There was overshoot happening at the beginning. So your keyframes are going to look like this, bear. So the beginning looked good, right? You've got the keyframe there where it starts off screen and then moves to where it needs to go on screen, right? So it's going to look like this. Here, let me do it further down. You got the one here, the one here. Looks good. It does all of this properly, right? And then you have your straight line right here where the type is just on screen, not doing anything. Here's where the overshoot happens. When it starts to move, right, you have your keyframe, one keyframe here, and one keyframe here. And when it starts to move off screen, it's just overshooting that a little bit. So make sure this part is straight and then goes up like that. And then it won't kind of cock back and then go forward. We're going to do that this week with something, but right now that's just not what we want with this. That's not bad. Those look like, I don't know if that's linear keyframes or not, but I would just adjust the curvature on those keyframes to make sure they're eased. But it looks really nice. Other than that, like, good job on the fading per word. I know you were mentioning you had an issue with it. Ooh, that's cool. I would just move this bar up quicker. Like, make it all happen a little bit faster. And yeah, just have that moving quicker. Tighten that up because it moves kind of slow. I don't know if it is actually. Let me see here. Yeah, it is eased. It's just like the easing looks. It goes really fast all of a sudden, like this, and then it's like, so it's a really steep slope here. And I would almost do opposite, right? I would do. You want it to go kind of slower and then speeding up into place. You could even do like an S curve, right, where it kind of starts off fast, kind of slows down and goes like that. But you know what? Actually, it wouldn't work for this. I wouldn't do that. Just speed that up a little bit. the zooming in and out, let's stay away from that and just do the camera rotation or the camera position change. And then just change the fall off here, right? We want to brighten that light, especially because you have this yellow background with this blue type, right? I would make sure you light up that backdrop a lot so it's nice and bright. And then like your camera movement, use that target camera and then move this way with it. So like you're going to want to pan it around, kind of like you've seen in the other examples. The other thing that I'm just seeing here is that your type isn't quite touching the floor there. I can tell because I see the space in between right there. Other than that, it looks good. I'm not sure if there's a beveled edge on it. I can't see the light catching that edge, but good start on here, Bear. Good job. All right, you guys, let's go here to Megan. What other one? I think you were missing one, Bear. I think you're just missing the contact information that I did. Like just pretty much copying the same thing I did the first time. Because yours is more the creative one, which I like. That looks nice. I think that it does a little bit of there's slight overshoot on the word best. Just very, very tiny amount. So I would check that. But other than that, it looks pretty good, like the way it settles in. I like the motion blur. The motion of everything's good. That looks nice. You guys can darken up the type of it if you want. Good job on that, Megan. Right here, I would just just move this maybe down a little bit to have equal space here. Or increase the size of your type on all of it in general. That looks good. Yeah, just add the light. Just increase the light. The camera movement was really good on there. Was it linear? The camera movement is easing. And remember, when we're doing camera movement, we want it to be linear. This is going to annoy you guys, right? Because I'm going to tell you, nothing can be linear this whole entire time where I'm teaching you guys. But when it comes to camera movement, good camera movement is linear. It is not, you don't, why is this, right? Because video editing, because it's being edited, essentially. So like there, you will see, when you see raw, it's called raw footage. And that's the footage that you get that hasn't been touched. It's straight from the camera to the computer. And so there's been no editing, nothing on it, right? And when there's raw footage, you will see the beginning of that camera movement. But that's the part that you cut off. You make sure that the parts of the footage that people see are going to be the ones where the camera's moving nice and smooth, right? And you're not seeing that beginning, like that beginning speeding up to get to the correct speed. And so you definitely want to have linear keyframes when it comes to camera movement in general, okay? That's the only thing that I'm really going to tell you needs to be linear. So there is like a time and place, right? But like with objects, we don't want them to be linear because objects don't move like that. But camera movement is something that we control. It's a deductive process when we edit things, right? We're not like adding things all together and then showing the entirety of it. We're seeing the entirety of it and cutting it apart and then pasting it together so that people see what we want them to see. And so that's why we use linear camera movement inside of just in general, right? But good start on that. Good start. And then I can slightly see the edge of your drop, the backdrop there. So I would just extend the backdrop, just make it bigger, longer. And we talk about that in the video too. That looks nice. Nice job. Good job there. Cool. And then we're just missing the, oh, no, you have it here. And then you have the other one. So I think you have everything. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Megan delivered. Way to go. All right. Nick. We have Nick next. All right, Nick. So I would the background is distracting, right? I think it's cool what you're going for. I think the intent is fine, but for as like a design as a design choice, it's not a good design choice. It just distracts from the actual text and the movement on screen. So just have one solid background. You can pick any of these colors, right? You guys can have fun with the color and just make sure you're sticking to like color theory, right? Because that's what I would see. But like you can pick the blue, you can pick like the gray, or you can pick the red. I don't care, just one of them. And then just make sure that it's over the entire thing, because at the top, like it's just showing a little bit of like it's not fully up on the frame. And then the other thing about it, right, is because this type is like sitting directly on this line, and we don't want that to happen there. But let's look at the motion again of this. So that's just kind of the design choice. I want you to work a little bit on the curves of this. They all seem very similar, so I want to see them, make sure that the best is the most exaggerated, then the better, then the good is like the least exaggerated of all the curves, right? The way out wasn't bad. Your timing could just be, you could also just maybe try extending the keyframes out a little bit to extend that timing slightly. And then I want to see some motion blur added. Typography can be faded. So we need the word fade in here, right? And okay, this is, yeah, it's, I appreciate the gumption on here and the effort for it. We need to have the word fade, kind of like I was saying to everyone else. And then this is fading on and off. And you don't want that. Remember, the ones I want you to use are over here under animation presets, text, animate in. I think there is like an animate in and out. You don't want the animate out. You just want the animate in. Animate in. And then you want the fade up characters and fade up words and apply them to the appropriate sentence, right? And then we need things on screen a lot quicker because this is really fast. I can't read it, and it's very small. So I see what you're doing here, right? You're working with the background, but let's stick to kind of the parameters of it, and maybe even for your creative one, right? Maybe you could just do 2 colors for the creative one. You could choose the blue and the gray, or the red and the blue, or if you're going to do the red and the blue, I would change one of they're both saturated about the same level. So I would change the saturation of one a little bit, or maybe take this red and not make it so much of like a wine red or a maroon red, and bring it more to like an apple red or something. And then, like I said, not on the lines. So we've got a little bit of work on this, Nick. And then I think this is your 3D text. We want to have the backdrop in there and the lights and stuff. So let's, you can either contact me or let's get a hold of Belle and we can work through this one. Because there's some work you got going on here. But I'm appreciative that you turned it in and tried and had like the creative ideas behind it. And we'll work around those ideas with you. So good start on there. Good job, you guys. Good job. All right, now let's get into the meat and taters of what this week is going to be like. I am going to go ahead and shut off my camera, and so you guys can see the entire, there we go. Now you guys can see the entirety of the, okay, so this week we are talking about the principles of motion design. So I want you guys to go through and read this. This book right here is an awesome book. In fact, I read it years ago, but it, talks a lot about mass and weight and anticipation, squash and stretch. Like there's a lot of a discussion about animation and the principles of animation, because it's written by the founding, essentially like the founding fathers of animation. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson are two animators who did a lot of the classic, like Disney animated films that you guys know. In fact, um, one of my teachers, one of my instructors at GCC was Bruce Johnston, and I believe he said he had some relation to him. Was it true? I don't know. I didn't look it up, but uh, he taught like a game design class or something at GCC a long time ago. I don't think he's there anymore, but we talked about animation and stuff with 3D. But yeah, this is a really good read. So if you guys have the opportunity, it's cool and hardcover. It's definitely worth the purchase, in my opinion. It's a nice heavy hardcover book, and uh, what's my favorite Disney film? Dang, that's a tough one for me. I really like The Lion King, even though it's really sad. It is a very sad one. And I enjoy a lot of the older ones, like watching Snow White. Um, I enjoyed Snow White. I enjoy a lot of the Pixar animated films that are done today. Um, Up is probably one of my favorite Pixar films, as well as, oof, there's just so many good ones. I really liked Soul. That one, if it makes me cry, I'm in it. And that's it. I'm like, it's good. It's, the storytelling along with the visuals and stuff is just fully immersive. That makes a great movie to me. I also, what's Fantasia? I thought Fantasia was really cool. I really enjoyed that. Um, yeah. So there's just kind of depends on the mood, I guess, that I'm in. That was a huge part of my childhood, like anyone's childhood growing up, were Disney films, right? Because it's the most kid friendly stuff that you could watch at the time. But a great read. I would definitely check it out. Now, Jorge Canedo is the one that's responsible for this GIF that you guys see on the homepage. This GIF, there's a reason that I want it up there all the time for you guys to see, and I think I mentioned it in one of the previous classes, but like it's there so that you guys can understand those principles of animation and have a visual to go with it, right? This, oh yeah, Encanto was great. That was a great one. I good call on that, Sarah. Um, for Encanto, you have the art book for that. I know I like doing that. I like buying art books for video games that I play and stuff. So, but back to the GIF right here, right? Jorge Canedo is a motion designer based out, I think, of Vancouver, um, and he's the creative director and owner of this website, Ordinary Folk. Now, if you go here to their main page, right, they're gonna have a reel up for you to see, and as soon as you watch it, you're gonna notice that. Um, it's not a lot visually on screen, right? There's only going to be a few objects, and they're simple shapes, but he utilizes all of the principles of animation so well that it just looks amazing. Like when I start to play this, you guys will see kind of what I mean. I mean, these are all really simple shapes, but there's anticipation happening here. There's like with the repetition and the um just so many good things. That was more complex than I thought. Like they've updated the reel since I've last watched it. But look at all that, with like there's so many different like squash and stretch and all the different principles that they incorporate into their animations is what makes something simple look really cool, right? And so we want to kind of do that. We're going to build on what we're going to build on what we have learned in the last few classes based on the bouncing balls and stuff. And then we're going to apply more of these principles of animation to it. So this week, we're focusing on mass, anticipation, and squash and stretch, right? And those are the ones right here. Mass, I don't know what that was, but mass and weight. So I want you guys particularly look at that. Anticipation. And then squash and stretch. And smears, right? We're going to talk about smears this week too. And so you guys are going to work on, we're going to create, there's going to be 2 sections. This week we're doing the 2D inside of After Effects, and then next week we're going to be working on the 3D. And they're going to have like the same things, just done in different visuals, like styles, right? And so we're going to work on a light and heavy impact of balls. We want to have a heavy ball that's kind of like a bowling ball dropping. Then we're going to have something that looks like, that's going to bounce kind of like a ping pong ball would bounce, or a tennis ball, something a lot lighter than an actual heavy object. And then this one, this one was the impact. We're going to do, the one I was speaking about before is the second one, right? That's the heavy bounce and the light bounce. The first one here is a heavy and a light impact, right? That's like if you were to hit something that is heavy, what does that look like when it moves, right? If you were to take a mallet or another ball and throw it into a bowling ball, what would happen? How far would the bowling ball move? How fast would it move? Versus if you were to take like a croquet mallet and hit a croquet ball with it, that's a lot lighter than a bowling ball that's going to move a lot faster, right? And so we're gonna do that this week, and then we're also gonna talk about squash and stretch, right? We're gonna take those bouncing balls. We're gonna create another set of bouncing balls, and we're going to squash them and stretch them in 2 different ways, using 2 different techniques. And so what I want you guys to do is go into this video right here, and you can right click and hit save as, and then I want you to save this video as an asset and put it inside of your After Effects folder, because in fact I have it in here where we can go through, and you guys will kind of see what we're going to make this week. So notice right away I'm going to talk about what we're going to see here. We're going to add title. You're going to add a title with a fade in, right? And then we're going to have impact happening. We're going to do a bounce where there's a heavy bounce and a light bounce. And then the squash and stretch. Notice the titles are in there, but they're secondary to what's happening, right? Even though they're large and they're centered. And for squash and stretch, we just I just want a simple, just write squash in there, and we're gonna understand what it is, right? But yeah, so we're gonna have titles on this. We're gonna do each one of these animations, and then you're going to composite them into one video like this, right? You can do one After Effects project, and then we're going to have different compositions within that. And then we're going to composite those compositions into one main comp that gets rendered out. And so the deliverables for this one are going to be, let me go down to the bottom. We want to see an MP4, wrong one, an MP4 file that contains all 3 of those scenes with the 1080p like encoder video, just one file. I just want that, okay? And then there is some more videos here, right? I think we're gonna do the, I'm not sure if we're gonna do the bounce today. We're gonna do one here shortly because we've only got 40 minutes left, and then next class we're going to go through it and do the rest of them. And like I said, if I don't get to them, I want you to watch these videos that are in here. Whatever ones I don't get to, watch it so that you can do that and include it in your project. I think that's where we're having maybe a communication where I'm not communicating entirely, is that if I don't get to it and it's on the deliverable list, watch the videos inside of the module and then complete those sections that I just didn't get to right away, because this is a long class. There's a lot to learn. These projects take a long time. And so I want you guys to get to it and be able to have everything done. So let us start. And then here's some visual references for you guys on what the curves are going to look like for certain scenes that you're going to work on. This specifically is your light and heavy bounce, and this is your squash and stretch, right? What the balls are going to look like squashing and stretching in the keyframe, like inside the graph editor. So we are going to, let me minimize this. And let's start out with squash and stretch since we're on here, right? Which one do we want to do? That one might take a little time. Let's start off with the bounce. All right, so I have it all kind of pre-set up here. If you guys look, 1920, 1080, standard, right? Okay, I have it at 8 seconds. We're gonna see what the bounce looks like. I wanna see. Let's see how many bounces are in the reference video, right? That we have it in here. I think there's 3 bounces for each ball. So let's rewatch this. Except for the impact rate, there's not 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for the squash and stretch, we're going to do 3 bounces. And right now I already have something kind of pre-set up. There is no background here, but I can add one, and I'll just copy and paste this one in to copy. Oh, wrong one. Let's copy that background in. Paste it here. Or like I said earlier, right, you can always just take the background and put it in the main. That's what I have going on here, right? Because you see, don't want to delete that. I'm going to lock that so I don't move it. But you see how if I delete the background, it's black, right? You would think there's a black background happening there, but there's actually not. If I go over here, because I don't have a background layer in my timeline, so if I go over here and I click the toggle transparency, you're going to see that all of a sudden there is no background. That it's just blank. It's it's alpha channel right there, right? And so then when you render that, it's going to look black. But that's not what we want, because I'm going to keep the transparency channel in this. I'm going to turn off that transparency kind of channel right there so that it looks just black for me. It's just a visual way to see your objects a little bit easier, because you don't always want a background in every single composition. You can have it transparent here, and then when I go to composite everything in this main folder, if I have, or in this main composition, if I have a solid background on here, then it's going to show up in all of the videos as long as it's below all of my pre-comps, right? So let's go back here. You guys see that I have 2 balls set up. The word bounce is centered in the middle of my composition. I'm going to actually go down here and lock this this layer so that I do not move it on accident. And that's one of the ways you accidentally like move background layers and stuff, is it's just not locked. So I'm locking the text so I don't accidentally hit it and drag. And I created 2 balls here, and they are both at the same height position, right? Here's we have our Y position there is both at 300, and then our X values are different because the ball is spread apart. And let's go ahead and start with the heavy ball. Now the heavy ball, great. But I don't, we'll just start with that one. So we are going to first block out the animation, right? We want to kind of get the gist of what the movement is going to look like before we go in and start to change the graph editor in there. And that's kind of what blocking out is, kind of like how you block out a drawing, right? You start with kind of shapes, and then you slowly start to add detail. And you can do the same thing for animation. You can block out the animation and get the main movements in there, and then you can really work on the transitions in between each other, or how that motion occurs with the easing and stuff. So let's we are going to first right click, and we can separate dimensions. And we do not need, I will do it for both of them right away. And we just need to keyframe the, we're going to work with the heavy ball at the moment. We're going to just keyframe the Y position, because it's not going to go anywhere but up and down. And then I'm going to just hit U, select that layer and hit U, so that I'm only seeing that Y position there. And then I am going to move the keyframe. Let's go to, remember we're at 24 frames a second, so this is half a second right here. I'm going to bring it to 1 second. We're going to block this out, and we'll work with the timing in a little bit. And I'm going to take my position and move it down. And let's make sure that in here we're putting in an even number, so that when we move the light ball down, we can add an even number there, and they're hitting on the same, they're like impacting on the same location at the same position, right? So I'm just going to type in 800 there. And then, so we have one hit. It's a little slow, but we're going to work it out. A good rule of thumb when it comes to a heavy bounce, right? Especially because, like, think of dropping a bowling ball on the floor. Is it going to bounce back up like half the distance of where you dropped it? Absolutely not. It's gonna slightly come off of the ground, and then it's just kind of and then roll, right? We're not going to add the roll in right now, but you have to think about that weight of the object when we're talking about, like, this is all about weight and mass at the moment. And so when it comes to a heavy object, it's good to only have that move like a fifth of the way of the height back up from where you dropped it, right? So what does that mean, right? So I go down here. It's going to bounce back up, right? Let's move 12 frames ahead. And we're going to just bring that up just slightly. I'm going to move in here so you guys can see. I'm going to probably go up, like, if I were to break this into 5, right? Here's the bottom keyframe. Here's the top keyframe. And I were to, let's see, here's the middle, and then there and there. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So I'm going to bring that up just slightly. And you guys can draw like a grid, kind of like we did with the ball bounce for the hand-drawn one. I'm going to change this value to something that's more of like an even number. So I'm probably going to do like 675. Let's see what that looks like. Slightly up. Okay, that's not bad. Notice right now the anchor point, I have it centered. It is okay for the animation that we're doing at the moment, because we are not changing the scale of the ball, and so it's just animating from the center, and that's okay. Generally, we if we're changing like scale and stuff, you want to think of where you want that object to scale from, and that's where you want your anchor point to go. And we'll touch more on that on Thursday. But for now, with the bounces, it can be a centered anchor point in there. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to move down the timeline, and keeping the time symmetrical, right? So this was the longest bounce, or the longest drop, right? But then it's going up here. We're going to drop it back down to the same position. We want it back at that 800, so you can just take this keyframe right here, and you can copy and paste it with Control C, Control V. So it goes back down to the same spot, and then we're going to go another 12 frames forward, and we'll adjust this, right? But right now, blocking out the timing is pretty good. Is essential for just getting the motion down. So we go 1, 2, and then we're going to go back up. Just probably 775, not even much further than that. And then back down to the floor. So you can just copy and paste that keyframe. So if I play it, I'm going to hit N on my keyboard, you know, to shorten that, just the playing part that I want. 1, 2, 3. Right? It doesn't look good because it's not eased. But the bouncing in general, it doesn't, it's not going too high on the bounce. Like it looks heavy, right? It's like boom, boom, boom. In fact, I would probably take this section, right? Because it kind of bounces a little high for me here. So I'm actually going to take this. And this is what's great about blocking it out, because once you ease your keyframes, this action becomes a little bit more, you have to pay attention to it more. So you might as well get your height kind of down in the beginning. So I'm going to move this to 700. Let's see that one. Yeah, that's not bad. You want the bounce timing to be symmetrical here, and that's why I have these separated 12 frames apart each time, right? It's because I want the bounce to be the same time in general, minus this section right here, where it takes the longest because it drops down from a higher distance. And so I'm going to select all of these keyframes. We're going to go into the graph editor. We can already see, right, the bounce kind of happening here. And we want to update the curves so that they look like an upside down bounce, right? Like it already kind of looks like an upside down bounce, but we want those curves, we want it to be curved now so it actually looks like an upside down bounce. Let me see here. I want to have a total of the 3 bounces, I think it does. So 1, 2, 3. Perfect. When we get to the light ball, that will bounce an extra time because it's lighter, so it's going to bounce a lot faster. It's going to bounce a lot more. But focusing on this, we want 3 bounces. Let's go ahead and ease all of these keyframes. So we're going to just kind of drag and select all of them. And we're going to go down here and we're going to hit easy ease down at the bottom. All right. And then now let's play it and see what it looks like. Definitely not, right? Because it's like slowly moving out of that position. We definitely don't want it to look like this. So let us, right, because we want the ball to first like go down really fast and then hit and then bounce right away. So we want to take, do not do that. We want to drag over this keyframe right here. We're going to Alt and, let's see there, maybe Control, I think. Yeah, Control and drag down so that the curve looks more like a bounce, right? So like a drop. And then we're going to take this one and hold down Control and bring that up because we need it to bounce it like an upside down bounce. Boom, boom. Now here is where it's coming back up, and here is where it's gonna, we want this to be again up, and then this the same. And it is okay to zoom in on this, right? If you need to see it a little bit closer, if it's easier to do that, go ahead and zoom in. And then we're gonna, we don't, remember, this way is up and down. In fact, look over here, like up and down over here. This is height by time, right? We're looking at the timing of the timeline versus the height right here. And so you don't want this to keep going higher each time, or that means the bounce is going higher, because as soon as I drag this up and down is determining where in space is that bounce happening, right? And so you don't want these to go up any higher than the previous one, especially because it's dramatically starting to lose momentum right in there. And so this one we want to kind of Again, holding control, and this one's going to look like a lot smaller of a bounce, right? Very small. And this one we want to be like this. The problem here is that this needs to go at the same level as these ones. So let me get this curve a little bit different, and then we're going to play it back. There we go. Like, it looks like a pretty decent bounce so far. This looks like it's about too much of the same height for me. So I am going to save my project first, Control S, and then I'm going to, like, the height of the height of this bounce to this bounce is too close to each other. Notice how this is like two sections. Like if you break this down into these little squares on the graph, this is two. This is not even a full section. So let's maybe bring that up to about there, and then we'll keep this one down, right? So how do we do that? I'm going to take, let me move here, just checking my Y position value over here, right? Hits the same spot. Going up, hitting the same spot there. You know what it is? I'm missing a keyframe right here. So, let me see. I think because there should be one, goes back up, drops down, goes back up. Okay, so I'm missing a keyframe. So this one is actually the middle keyframe. So this one should be up like this, and it should be not like this. Make sure that if this ever happens, you don't want the Bezier curves to look like that, where one's kind of off this way, because this little curve isn't going to be smooth. So what I'm going to do is just kind of bring that up this way and smooth that out a little bit. Let me see here. Click on the ball again in the Y position. Select this. You can kind of see it right there. It's not even. We want that to be like this. There we go. And then it'll hit the floor. Okay. The only other thing now that I see is, let me zoom out of here, right, is the timing. This is way too far this way. So let's take this, and we're going to hold down shift maybe and bring it this way. Technically the 12 there, it should be this one. This one's needs to be dragged over for a moment. In fact, sometimes when you start doing this, it's just easier to do it in the dope sheet view versus in the graph editor view. So I want this frame, the up, to be there, and then the hit there. So it's like, right, drop, hit, up position, hit the ground position, up position, hit the ground position. So let's replay this. All right, not bad. So we've got the curve working here, but let's change the timing because this is way, way too slow. So we're going to just, one of the ways, let me show you a couple different ways we can do this, right? So we can select all of the keyframes, and notice how you get this white box around here. Ooh, what did I do? Okay. I'm actually going to re-ease this one and then just bring these. I just did not like the way that looked, so I'm going to bring these kind of in. Let's watch that. That's too slow. So notice how, like, I mean, even myself, it takes a second sometimes for me to look. So I'm actually going to undo those things and then watch it this way. Right? We might want it actually a little bit more exaggerated there. So because the bounce is going to be really fast because it's a heavy object. And then this one right here, I'm going to just kind of smooth that out like that. This one right here, I mean, just smooth out slightly. So let me save this, bring it back, and rewatch it. That looks much better. I just needed to smooth that curve out because I had broken the Bezier handles right here, and it caused an issue with that. So I just redid that very quickly. And so let's change the timing like I was talking about. Drag and click and select all of them. Now, if you grab this and you drag it over, and let's say I only want the bounces to happen in 1.5 minutes, or I'm sorry, 1.5 seconds, I would just drag it all the way to this area right here. And that already looks much better, right? It almost still looks a little too slow. So if I were to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This one, there's a little bit of a bounce there that I'm not too happy with. I think what I'm going to do is take this position and move it up. But we repositioned the time, or we changed the timing, right? We updated it. Now, if we're going to go to our dope sheet, let's see what happens when we go to our dope sheet and see if we actually landed directly on the frames. If I hit U. So like I go in here, right, and I shorten the timing up. And I'm going to zoom in real tight so that I can see each frame. And I just happened to get, oh, no, here is one. I caught it. Gotcha here. So this frame right here is in between 5th frame and 6th frame. What do you mean, Amanda? I thought you said there's no in-betweens. There should not be in-betweens. And it only happens when you scale, when you change like timing in that manner. It also happens because there's another way you can change the timing, right? You can select all your keyframes, and if you hold Alt and then click on this keyframe and move it in and out, notice that it keeps the same spatial distance between the keyframes, but it just it tightens them up together. So it keeps everything equal distance apart, but it just tightens up the timing for you. And so then all of a sudden you got a super fast bounce there, right? But then if I go in, the issue lies at like now we have in between keyframes, and we don't want that. So we are going to just, you pick one or the other, and you can just drag it. And let me just undo this because I don't like how fast this is moving. You can just drag it to whichever frame you prefer, right? Like I'll drag it into the 22nd frame right there. So it's almost at a second. I'm going to zoom out here and I'm going to watch this again. That third bounce there looks a little like it jerks a little too much for me. Let's look at the reference, right? Let's watch the reference bounce. In fact, there's an extra bounce in there. So we can even add a fourth one in there if you want to. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That even has 5 bounces. Okay. So let's add some more bounces in here, right? So hits the ground. I'm going to I'm going to add another keyframe. So there's 1, 2, 3. We need to add some more over here. So let's, we're going to keep this timing, but we are going to add another up. Very tiny. And then we're going to move another 12 or another, halfway in between. close, right? Because here's 1 second. From here to here is 1 second. So technically halfway would be here. And if I wanted to space the timing out equally, it'd be here. But I changed the timing, remember? So I'm going to just kind of visually see equal distance would be about this frame right here. Whether it's this one or the one prior, it's still equal distance. In fact, let's move it to the one frame before so that it's a little bit quicker. And then we're going to just kind of copy and paste this keyframe there so it lands in the same spot. And let's watch this again. And I am going to zoom in on this. I'm going to adjust these. We're going to adjust these a little bit more. So I'm going to go here, make sure that this one goes up. And then if you notice, this is overshooting because this curve goes over the actual keyframe that I have up in the air. So, and we don't want that. We don't want it to go higher than it needs to. So I'm going to bring that curve down like really low. And make sure it's like even with this. And then this one right here, I'm just going to kind of maybe slightly change it just down a little bit more. Very slow, very subtle. Let's watch this. I think this one, the timing is the issue on this one. Let's try it. And also these are a little bit too far apart. Let's bring them in. Holding down shift, grab those buzzy handles and drag them. Well, let's play it again. Not bad. You guys might be seeing a little glitch. It's just because of the streaming and stuff. I think I want to, it has to do with this one, I think. There's still something about it that's not quite right. Maybe it's how quickly the animation stops for me. So I'm going to add just one more bounce in. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to, let's see, ground, now up. Very low, right? Very, very low. And then I'm going to move another couple over here, and then I'm going to copy and paste that floor keyframe, the impact keyframe right there. And then I'm going to move in here and make sure that that is not overshooting, right? Because I'm going to actually flatten this part out. So I'm going to just grab that little area and just kind of go like that. It's almost flat. There's a slight curve, and you can tell because you can see this little, you can see part of the grid line right there. So let's play this. Let's see what this looks like. That's too small. So let me delete these ones and just look at this. Maybe the extra bounce isn't what I needed. I think the timing between the initial drop and these bounces needs to tighten up, right? So I don't want to move this keyframe here so much. I just want to tighten up the timing of it. Oh, sorry about that, you guys. Let me see if I can grab it like this. Click and drag, click and drag. And if you, for some reason, can't get the same one, you can just hold shift and click and drag that way. And then I'm just going to bring that back in. Let's see, let's have it happen all at 1 second. Not bad. I think this one needs to just come up. Oh, this one needs to just change in value slightly. So I'm just going to, in fact, just arrow it. Nope, that doesn't work. I'm going to zoom in here again. And I'm just going to select this. Notice it's not on a keyframe, right? So let's go back to our dope sheet. We're zoomed in here. and we're going to move that over one. Same with this one, move it over one. Move this over one. This is on a keyframe. I might move this one. Your timing will slowly start to get faster in between. Like the bounces aren't going to go as high, so the timing is going to end up like the spatial distance between each keyframe is actually going to decrease as it goes. So in fact, I think that this one, because it's 1, 2, 3 on the third keyframe, 1, 2 on the third keyframe, right? That's okay. Let's move this one over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that one's okay. Maybe we move this over one. 1, 2. 1, 2. Let's move it same because we don't want it one frame like, right? And then this one as well. Let's see what this looks like. That looks much better, right? So initially, when you're blocking out the animation, you want them all to be equal in time. But then as the ball decreases in height, it's going to increase in acceleration down to the bottom because it's not going as far, right? It's going to be a much quicker bounce. And so that looks a lot better than what I had before. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. And what are we going to add to this? Some motion blur. So let's add some motion blur onto that. Make sure it's turned on, and then let's look. There we go. That looks much heavier, and it's much smoother bounce than what we had before. And look, it happens way quicker than 1 second. It actually happens in like only like 6/8 of a second. My fractions aren't amazing, guys, so don't judge me on that, but it looks pretty good there. And now let's block out the light ball, right? So we kind of know how this went. This is actually the more difficult ball, I believe, to get the timing down. But let's block out the, let's move to the lightweight ball. And we're going to animate the Y position. We're going to hit U on that. And we're going to solo this layer. Now, what is soloing the layer, right? It's when you select this little box right here. And it doesn't hide everything. These ones hide layers, right? So if you have this toggled off and there's like a slash through it, that means if you were to render it out, it wouldn't show up in the render. But just by soloing a layer, it just means we want to focus on this, right? It didn't hide any of the other stuff. It just is focusing on the one thing we want to look at. And so let's block this out again. And we're going to block it out from up to 2 seconds, right? So we are going to, we got the initial keyframe there. And then we're going to move to 12 frames. And then we're going to drop it down to the same height we had before on the second drop here. So what was that? Or on the heavy ball drop, it's at 800. So that's where we want this one to go as well. So let me just get out of here. I'm going to hit U again on the heavy one so we don't have to look at those keyframes and be distracted. But I'm going to just type in my value, 800 there. And then I'm going to move a quarter of a second in, 6 frames. And then I'm going to go up. Now, a good reference for this one, right? So before I said about 1/5 of the way each time when it's a heavy ball. For a light ball, a light bounce, right? If it's a light object, I would do like maybe a half each time. Half the way each time. And it's going to bounce. It's going to actually have more bounces probably. So we've got, and in fact, it's going to take more time because it's going to go up higher and it's going to take longer to hit the ground because it's up in the air longer. So let's take this keyframe and we're going to move it to 1 second. And then we are going to move by every 12 frames on this one. So we might have to extend this just slightly. Let's go to the third or 3.5 seconds and we'll hit N here. And so we're going to go top, drops to the bottom. We're going to go halfway up. We're moving to half a second up, and then we're going to go to let's do 500. Let's drop it down. Yeah, no, 500 looks pretty good. It's a good value in there because it goes up. And then we're going to move another 12 frames just so we're equal distance for the timing because we're blocking the animation. We're going to copy this keyframe right here and then paste it here because it's going to hit in the same spot, right? And then we're going to go about half the distance of this one. So 500 to 800. Let's do like, let's do 650. And then just kind of visually see where that one is. So we drop, bounce up, drop, bounce up, drop one more. So we're going to copy the floor keyframe, the impact keyframe. We're going to paste it. And then we're going to do another 12 frames. And we're going to go up another bounce. And this one is going to look like the bounce continues even after the heavy ball stops. And the reason is because it's light. It's going to take a lot longer for this bounce to stop. So you're not actually going to complete the full bounce on this one. I just want to see 4 bounces total. So it's going to look like this one would continue bouncing. And that's also what sells that the weight of this ball is a lot lighter. So we've got a 1, 2, 3. Let's add one more. We'll go up again. So this one will do like 750. Ooh, that was way, I added a 3 onto the end of that, 750. And then we're going to go and copy and paste this one. And we might not show all the bounces on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, let's go higher on these. Let's give it a little bit more. Let's do 500. Let's cut it in half, do 400, right? Back up to 400, and then we're going to go down to the 800, and then let's do 600, and then back down to the 8, and then we will do 700, back down, and then it would continue and go lower and lower, right? And so we are going to play this, and it's slow, but it's blocked out. So we're going to select all the keyframes, and we're going to go into the graph editor, and we are going to reselect the keyframes, and we're going to ease them. Make sure they're all selected. Hit easy ease. And then we are going to update this bounce, right? We want it to look like a big bounce happening. And then, so we're going to take this, click off, drag and click. And then holding control, you're going to take this and make this look like a nice big bounce happening there. Hit the ground, it's going to bounce off there. And then we're going to, right here, we're going to kind of drag these out a little bit more. Holding down, let me do this a little bit different. We grab this and we're going to hold down shift and pull it this way, and pull this one this way. And then we're going to select there and hold down control and bring that up. Make it a little bit more dramatic. Control and bring this one up. Notice how the curves are looking different already, right? We're going to take this one and hold shift and pull it out. We're making this bounce look way more dramatic than, like, it's faster than the other one, right? As far as like how quickly it's accelerating and decelerating down. We're going to bring this one up, and then this one right here, we're going to just kind of pull these Bezier handles out. In fact, this one could probably go up a little higher. And then this final one here, we're going to drag that right up. And then hold down shift and select it. Holding down shift and maybe bringing it right to there. You can see the value when you hover over it. It's at 676. So I'm going to put my playhead over it, and I'm going to hit 675. So I just have an even number there. And then let's see what it looks like. Boom, 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 boom. A lot lighter. Slow still. But let's speed it up, right? So let's speed it up in the dope sheet view. So we're going to select all our keyframes. Another way you can do it instead of clicking and dragging is you can just select the entire position, like the animated position there, and it'll select all your keyframes. Same with rotation and all that stuff. You can just select that part of the layer. Make sure they're all selected. Hold down Alt, click the bottom one, and then drag it, right? I want this one to continue over 3 seconds. Let's see. Yeah, in fact, this one, this bounce right here can go higher. So let's move our playhead above, and we're gonna, it's not that one, it's hits the ground, goes back up, hits the ground, goes back up. Let's make this one go back up higher, right? Ooh. Sorry, you guys, I had to hit back a couple times there. So click the position, hold Alt, click the last keyframe and drag. Let's get this one at a 3 second mark. I'll bring this in. And then let's zoom in kind of to our thing a little bit more here and see if there's any keyframes that are not on a, they're all equally on there right now. Cool. So, that's not what I want to do. Now we are going to, the timing of this, not bad. I'm going to move that kind of over here, right? Let's take the timing of this and stretch it past where our view, where like our composition is going to be from what we want actually rendered out. So it looks like it's continuing the bounce even after the animation occurs. So 2, 3, 4. The bounce needs to be higher on the second bounce because it goes 1, goes up nice and high. This bounce right here, I want this to be a little bit taller. This frame obviously, or this keyframe was not on a frame, so I'm going to move it over this. I'm going to move it this way to tighten the timing up. And then I'm going to just move that value back up here so it's closer to what happened before, and then hits the ground. And then I'm going to do the same to this one. Again, move this over one here. And then in fact, I'm going to take this one and move it over here. But this value is too low. Like the bounce doesn't make sense, right? Because it's going like, it goes high, high, too short. Like it's all of a sudden losing that momentum too quickly. So let's move it up. And you can see equal distance on those keyframes, right? Like the height of it. So here's where it starts. It goes to here next, it goes to here next, and then it goes to here next. There's about equal distance in between all of this, the positions here in the scene. So let's see this one. Much better. Now, if we focus that layer and we watch it, the only thing I don't like is that the speed of this one's way too slow. So let's select them again, Alt and drag it in. Let's look at the keyframes on this one. So let's double the amount almost, because it's going to take twice as long for this one. So I'm going to, yeah, I think that should be okay. Let's play it now. That looks good. And then when you go to render, you'll only really render out this much, right? It's going to continue looking like it's going to keep bouncing off screen. So that looks good. But what else do we need to add? Final touch here, some motion blur. And then all of a sudden we're in business. And it looks like this is going to continue bouncing while this stops because this is the heavy object and this is the light one. And that is our this is our mass, right? This is all about mass today in this class, this lesson. So, oh great. We learned about mass and weight with the bounce one. And so make sure that, let's look at the graphs real quick together before I move on. So we're going to just select the Y position of the lightweight ball and control click that one. And you can see the difference, right? You can visually see how this one, the light ball, this value right here, takes longer, right? Because it's bouncing higher, because it's lighter. Versus this ball right here, which is almost half the time that this ball takes to bounce. And it just stops all of a sudden because it's only got 1, 2, 3, where this one would continue bouncing, probably for another 3 to 4 more bounces before it would actually settle and roll off. So, looking at references online is a great way to kind of have the idea of how fast things need to go and fall to the ground, right? So let's see, animation, reference, heavy ball. And you can just kind of go to videos and see what it looks like for someone to drop a heavy ball. Look, there was like literally 1, 2, 3. Same that we had. I mean, granted, this obviously has an X position change as well. But we're controlling that in here. We just want to show that we understand what weight is. So go ahead, you guys, and get a head start on that. And on Thursday's class, we're going to go over we're going to go over all the questions. And then we're also going to cover impact and then squash and stretch on here. And so if you guys have any questions in the meantime, let me know. But I hope you guys have a good night.